Hello everyone, welcome to this webinar on how to create varied content for your team of brand ambassadors. We have numerous features in our system to help you to create variations of content. We did an internal research recently and it stated that some of the brand ambassadors or your colleagues did not share a post because a post was already shared by a colleague, for example, the exact same post. So that's why we wanted to create this webinar to help you to create more variations in your content to make sure not everyone is sharing the exact same post on the exact same time. So as you can see, I already created a post and we have two options to create variations. One is in terms of text and one is in terms of images. And I want to start with the images first. So I will upload two of the images of our team session of last week. So we have two versions of these images, and I want to have the option for my team to choose which image they want to share to their system. So I select them both, and then I get three options, and I'm going for the final option here. So let my ambassadors choose which image they want to use. So if I click that option, then I will get a slider in my system. And this basically means that your colleagues will get the option to choose between the first and the second image while sharing their post. So it's not that both images will be shared, but the choice is really up to your team, which of the two images they prefer and which they want to share to their own accounts. So I suggested this post already to myself. So this is a email version of how it works. It's also available in the app, of course. So the same slider will be in the mobile app as well. As you can see, I have the same images here and I have the same slider here. So how it works is that my colleagues can use the slider to choose the image of their preference. And as soon as I would click the post option now, this image will be posted to my account. If I go to the other one, of course, this image will be shared to my account. And you can also see the info below of the photo. So it's a really great way of allowing your team to use different images and share different images to their accounts. The image is a really important part in terms of variation. If you have multiple images, I would really suggest using them all and either using the gallery post option or letting your team choose which image they want to use to create some variation in terms of your postings. So that's the first step in creating variations for your team. The second one, of course, is based on textual variations, which means you can create variants of posts in our system. We have two options here. So you can create your own manual variation. So you can click the copy button and a new variation will appear, and then you can just change the text yourself if you want to. It is a little bit time consuming to create different variations for different people, of course. So I would recommend, if you don't have the time, then at least change the first two sentences, for example, because that is something that will show on LinkedIn and Facebook, and you have the see more button to read the rest of the post. So most of the variations will be seen in the first two sentences. So if you don't have the time, then at least try changing up the first two sentences to make sure that variation is already shown as well. Another option is to use our AI variation maker, which means that you can click the one below, and then our AI variation maker will write different variations for you based on the first variation that you created. It is a machine, so please make sure to check all of the variations first. It will create 5 new variations for you. Please check all of them, especially if you're using a lot of names, for example, to make sure everything is translated correctly in the new variations, and then move over to the next step. So it's a really great way to create different variations of text. And if I move to step 2, then I can also randomize these variations among my team. So I have a random button here. And if I click the select all button, for example, then the system will automatically divide the people over the different variations that I created. So I don't have to manually select the people per variation, but I can just randomly divide it among the people that I have selected in my system here. So it's a really useful way to create multiple variations for multiple people and making sure that not everyone is sharing the exact same post on the exact same time. If you want to, you can of course do it manually. So you can go to variant 1 and select, for example, a specific colleague there. Could be useful if you're, for example, creating a post for a CEO, which will probably be little more different than for a regular employee, for example. Then you can move back to step one and let's say, okay, this variation, for example, is for myself. So I can name it Stefan. And then I can move to step two, and then I can click the Stefan variation and then select myself here. So that would be an option if you're really creating specific variations for specific people, to make sure everyone is receiving the right post for their accounts. Something that's also an option that's a little bit more useful if you're using business pages only, for example, is that you can also create variants based on platform. So let's say I can create the first one is only for Facebook. The second one is for LinkedIn. The third one is for Instagram, for example. And I can create different variations of posts for these specific platforms. So maybe Instagram has no link, and Facebook is a little bit more playful, for example, and LinkedIn is a little bit more business-like. So that would also be an option to use the variations to your advantage and create different variations for different platforms. And you can use the platforms icon here to select which platforms you want to use for your post. So if I only want to share it to LinkedIn, for example, then I can remove the Facebook icon here and I can only select LinkedIn. This only works for business pages, so it's really important to know if I want to have multiple variations for multiple platforms for personal accounts, I would have to use our copy action. So I would first create a LinkedIn post and then post it to everyone, create a copy in the post I'm planning, and then select, for example, Facebook, and then schedule it for Facebook, and the same applies for Instagram, because you can only schedule one variant for a personal account. So you cannot say I create a variant Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram and send it to one personal account, because it will always only pick one of those accounts. So if you want to create different variations for different platforms for personal accounts, please use the copy action in the post I'm planning to make sure everyone is receiving the right post for their right account. So these are the best options to use variation to your advantage based on images and also based on text. If we move over to step two, I will select the people here, and then I go to step three, which is selecting my time. And we can also use variation in terms of time. So we have three options here. So you can schedule it now, or which will send all of notifications right away, or a single date, which will be a single date and time in the future. Or you can use the date range option, and this is the most important one, especially if you don't want your people to share the post on the exact same time. So I can select the date range here, and then I get two date pickers, and I can say I want to share, for example, this post between today and next week Friday, and then the system will gradually suggest these posts to the people I have selected in step two. So this means that not everyone will receive the post on the exact same time and date, but it will spread over 1 week. So really important to use this, especially if your content is not time limited. I would always recommend using multiple days. It doesn't have to be a week, but at least use multiple days or at least multiple hours to make sure not everyone is sharing on the exact same date and exact same time, because you will create an overkill on your system, especially if you have a larger team. So it's really important to use the date range here. Something you can do if you're using the date range, if you then move back to step two, for example, we also have a prio button here, which means that you can give priority to a specific user within that time range. So let's say I want Koen to share this post first, then I can click the priority button here. And this means that within my time range, Koen will receive this post first. So it's going to be really useful, for example, if you're scheduling something for a CEO, which is really important, and you want also to include the rest of the team, but you want Koen to have the first option to share this post to his own account, then I can use the priority button. You can also use it for multiple people, which means that multiple people will get it first. But it's most important for maybe one or two people to use the priority button here. The rest of the team will be randomly divided over this week. So it will be truly random, and it will spread over time, making sure not everyone is sharing on the exact same time and date. So it's really important to use it this way to make sure not everyone is sharing at the exact same time. Also, if you are sharing the same post for multiple people, also LinkedIn's algorithm or Facebook's algorithm will sometimes put posts together. So let's say I share a post now, and also my colleague Koen and maybe my colleague Yulche also shares a post on the exact same time and date. Then LinkedIn's algorithm will note that and say Koen, Yulche, and Stefan shared this post to LinkedIn. Making sure that, for example, someone that's already linked to me and also to Yulche and also to Koen will not see the post 3 times. So also the LinkedIn algorithm really makes sure not everyone is seeing 5 or 6 or 7 of the same posts at the same time. But it does need some time to find duplicate posts. So it can be, especially in the beginning, that sometimes people see multiple posts. And that's why it's really important to make sure that you use the variation based on images, but also based on text and also on time. Because we also have clients, for example, that have 50 people or 100 people. They create one post, click select all and send it to 50 or 100 people on the exact same time. And then you will create an overkill on LinkedIn and people will see only the same post because they're all linked together because they're colleagues. So it's also always a bit strange because the colleagues will see the multiple posts, but their networks probably not because they are not linked to all of the colleagues in your company. So it's really important to explain that to your team if you're getting questions about that. So I say, okay, we're trying to create these variations based on text, based on images, based on time. But it can happen that you see multiple posts sometimes, especially in the beginning if posts have just been shared, because the algorithm needs time to fuse them together here. The final option that we have, of course, which is not limited to you as an admin, but is an option that the colleagues have themselves, is that they can edit the post themselves. So they can create their own tone of voice in that specific post. We always recommend to tell your team to edit as much as possible. It's their account. They are responsible for what's being shared on their account. It's their tone of voice to make sure they edit the post to their own preference. I think in general, a lot of people will just basically share every post that you send to them. But if you really promote the editing, it can also help to create more varied content for your team. So it's really important to promote the edit button and make sure that the people are editing the post that you are sending to create even more variations. And especially again, in the first 2 sentences is most important because then you will see the variations in text. So hopefully it was clear to you what the importance is of creating variations based on images, based on text, and also based on time. So let it help you to create varied content and making sure not everyone is sharing the exact same post on the exact same time. Thank you for watching. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to help. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.